Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. My name is Nathan.
I'm Anna.
And we are here together again. Yay! To talk.
Yay.
Finally, it's been so long.
It's been a long time.
We're going to be talking today a little bit about screens in our home, specifically our television, which is super exciting because we did a thing a few months ago and we've lived through enough of it. We've now started 2021.
My rage has settled down.
Anna's calm enough that she believes she can sit in front of a microphone and say things that can be recorded for posterity.
There were a lot of fights about this.
Yeah. So what we're not doing today is showing up and telling you that our lives are awesome and you should be more like us. But we are going to bring up this conversation about what is the role of screens in our lives, specifically the television. We're actually zooming in just on that one thing because, well, personally, I feel like if we started off with smartphones, people would just hate mail us all the time. So we're going to start talking about television screens. And
there might be plenty of hate mail.
There might still be a lot of hate mail. It might happen, but it's going to be a good conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about what the Lord's been doing in our lives, how we are kind of walking into 2021 in this crazy quarantine time with looking to sustainable technology that we can commit to and that we can do with a good conscience, and then bringing up this idea of like, how do we connect the gospel to our drool tech and our entertainment, and where is it a tool, and where are we getting distracted by it? So with that kind of introduction, let's get this conversation started. Welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast, a resource for parents who are feeling outpaced and overwhelmed as they raise children in a tech world. As an educator, parent, and tech user, I want to equip parents with the tools, resources, and confidence they need to raise kids who love God and use tech.
Thanks so much for being here and listening to our podcast. We know you do not have endless amount of hours in your days, and it means a lot that you choose to listen to us. So if you like what you're hearing and you like this podcast, and you want other people to be able to find it, we would so appreciate if you could rate or review us, maybe do both. That is how people find our podcast. The more stars and the more reviews we have, the better chance somebody who doesn't know us personally can find us on the internet. So we would just love it if you could rate and review if you haven't done that already.
Yeah, and shout out Australia for doing a good job on that. We've been watching the percents tick up on that. So
Australia,
thanks Australia.
We're gonna come visit.
You. Canada, you're not doing bad either. Thanks for that. But I'd say Ohio, you got to pick it up. So here we go. With that in mind, so with the rate and review, one of the resources we're making that we want people to know about is our online workshop. There's basically a handbook that Anna and I wrote, edited, designed. We didn't design it, actually. Sorry. Shout out Dorothy Hune.
We did no design.
We did a lot of sticky notes that we took pictures of.
And
I
Word
kid you
documents.
not. Sticky notes that I sent pictures of, and she made this amazing handbook. And the first half of it is you walking with your spouse or with a community group, or it can be a solo study, but it's done best in community. And basically, you'll watch these little 3 to 5 minute videos and walk through, like, what is the gospel? How does it connect to tech? How do I know if it's healthy? All tech. How do I know if my tech is healthy? All that stuff. Second half is walking it through with your kids to make a family tech framework. That's a unique, customized, basically set of understandings for things like general ground rules, the time, place, content, safety, all of the information that you need to make sure that you can raise your kids up in the way they should go with technology and not just have a ton of rules that they need to sign on to the dotted line. So if you go to gospeltechworkshop.com, you will find the opportunity to purchase the handbook. You'll get access to all of the videos, and then we will send you the handbooks in the mail. And we are super excited that people are doing that and that they're getting those resources. 100% of those proceeds go right back into getting that resource to more people. So just know that is where that is going. And quick side note on that, all that you're listening to right now and all the content we create is donor supported. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are so grateful for being able to do this work and it being possible because of people like you. So Thank you for making that happen. Mm-hmm. All right. Today's conversation, we are talking TVs. Where are we headed with this?
We're going to look at the norm of TV in our culture, and we're going to push back on it a little bit. And like we said kind of in the intro, this is something we have been working through, and we didn't talk about it in real time because I honestly couldn't have a conversation about our TV and not just have my blood boil. It felt like one thing too many in a pandemic with homeschooling. And then Nathan was like, let's get rid of the TV. And I'm like, I can't even look at you right now.
And that might sound...
This was maybe in October.
It might sound like hyperbole, folks. That's literally what happened.
I literally was like, I cannot have this conversation. I can feel my blood boiling. And clearly that was an indicator of my heart, but it took a little bit of time for us to have this conversation. And really it just was like, we'll get to what happened. But anyway, we're going to talk about kind of what happened in our house with our TV and maybe why we can reevaluate just why we have a TV or TVs in our home. And that's very normal. And we just want to look at maybe pushing back on that a little bit.
Yeah. And so just really drilling down into this point that we want to make sure you hear up front. We're not saying TVs are bad.
Nathan is saying that. I'm here to advocate for you.
I am here to ask the question of why do we have TV? And we'll get into more of that. But just know that if you have TVs, we're not coming after you. I am simply bringing up the question that I brought up for my family of why do we have a TV? What is this increasing for us as a family and our quality of life and our intentional, purposeful living? And I'll drill into why I would even ask that. But we do have actually some Bible verses that kind of are the foundational bedrock of this conversation because we're not just going after TVs. It's a bigger picture. We're just focusing on TVs. We could actually roll this into all of our tech, but we're talking specifically televisions today. So first verse is Deuteronomy 6:9, talking about stewarding our time. And I'm just going to read kind of all of these. So I'm actually going to go back a little bit before that and talking about loving the Lord your God with all your heart. So 6:5, all your heart, all your soul, and all your might. And these words I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on your doorposts of your house and on your gates. And there's that idea that like we want to make sure that we are emphasizing the truths of the Lord in our house and that we are building everything upon that framework.
Yeah. And I think obviously you can be watching TV with your kids and reading things that are maybe not from a Christian worldview, and you can have good intentional conversations. But I think the norm in our society is just to watch whatever is produced and to not have it be, there's not a lot of filter, and we don't always question what we're consuming and what our kids are consuming. And so just having that be the foundation of, well, this is the expectation, is that we are cultivating a home where we are emphasizing God and our walk with him. And we're talking about that with our kids and with each other.
Yeah. And so then the second verse that we have for this idea of like, well, how do we even determine, like, God doesn't mention television. So what do we know? We talk about guarding our hearts. And you go to Proverbs 4, and we're kind of going to skip around. We're actually going to go all the way back to 14, where it says, do not enter the path of the wicked. Do not walk in the way of the evil. And then you skip to 17. So this is Proverbs 4:17. They say, for they eat the bread of wickedness and they drink the wine of violence. And then if you go down to 20, it says, my son, be attentive to my words, incline your ears to my sayings. Let them not escape your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and healing to their flesh. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life. And then it goes on to talk about basically if we don't keep our hearts, it's easy to get distracted and easy to find our hearts wandering from God's truth and from God's goodness. So that's the second piece we're using in this conversation.
Yeah, I think for ourselves and for our kids, like I think we are naive at best if we say that what we're watching isn't impacting the condition of our heart.
Yes. And now you guys can hear how that expands very quickly to like, well, what am I putting in my ears? And what am I reading in my books? And what am I watching for news? And where am I going online? And right, like, yes, it absolutely impacts all of the other tool and drool tech we use. Televisions are a really concise, clear way to have this conversation. And if you happen to see applications outside of that we're to say that that's the Holy Spirit. That idea, though, that this will apply to more. So the last one that we use is we talk about kind of the verse that I've gone to in my life that has been just a convicting point for me since high school has been Matthew 5:29 and 30. And Jesus puts it very clearly, and I really just love that he doesn't beat around the bush. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away, for it is better you lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell. And what I love about this is he's re-emphasizing the purpose of the gospel, the good news that we need a savior, and that all the good stuff we're doing for God and all the excuses we come up with for why we quote unquote need this technology or this even job or whatever this distraction is from God is a lie, and that it's killing us, and that the consequence of that is at best a loss of joy and a loss of connection with who God is and who God is asking us to be in light of Jesus, right? Like we're dying on the vine here because we're not getting connected. And at worst, we are lying about our actual faith in Christ because our actions don't line up. We say we want to follow God, but then we actually do whatever we want, and we sin at will. And Hebrews 10:26 has some terrifying statements about that. So this is our foundation. To review those three, today's conversation is based on this idea that we are to focus our hearts and minds on God first, and part of that is pursuing what he tells us to do. We guard our hearts, like Proverbs 4 says, and we're intentional about what we watch, what we read, how we go about daily life, and in this case, what we watch on television, because Matthew 5:29 and 30 says this particular technology is expendable if it's a distraction. We're not saying it is, but for many of us, it might be. So that's our foundation.
Yes. Yeah. And we're going to just tell you a little bit about our own. I think we've talked about this maybe a long time ago, but
it was a while.
Our own TV.
We have a lot more humans listening now.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah. There's just some people that don't know us. So okay. Hi, everybody.
Our own TV backgrounds. We have come from different homes.
That's good. Good news. Good news. We're not siblings.
To clear it up.
Thanks for that.
So different, but we just have different expectations. Came into our marriage with different TV expectations. And then we're going to look at a couple, just kind of what the data is on TV, and then where we are right now with TV in our house.
Yeah, let's
so do you want to
can we maybe switch that? Can we go our story and then like where we grew up and then what happened with our television? Because I feel like we really tease that out more than
we can do whatever.
It's a podcast. We can do what we want.
Okay, do you want to talk about your?
Yeah, so my family, I was raised in a family of 5 kiddos. We were raised basically without television from the time I was probably like 6. So my parents went to a conference at some point in the late 80s and came back and were like, we don't need a TV. And so we kept the physical like television thing, and they really invested in what we would now call analog adventures. So me and my 4 sisters were raised to the point where, like, when I went to college, I didn't know anything about Friends or Seinfeld. Like, I didn't have any of those kind of just common denominator shows that I was aware of. We watched a lot of Focus on the Family movies. 5 Mile Creek was one of them, as I recall. And a bunch of Christian comedians, and listened to a lot of Sandy Patty. So that was kind of...
Who is now...
Oh, did she fall off the wagon?
Well, I don't know. I just feel like some people have strong opinions about Sandy Patty.
Oh my.
The house you grew up in also had a physical space to keep a TV in that was separate from the general living area, which I feel like was a big part of our frustration about TV.
Talking you and me?
Yes, you and me.
You and...
The house, whatever. The two of us in our conversation, that was a point of contention. The house you grew up in has, your parents still live there, has a separate like TV room.
Yes, where you can close the door and the TV stays in there.
This is where we go to watch TV.
Yeah, there's no second activity done in there. It's
a
hangout room for shows,
watching
movies,
a movie,
video games.
Okay. So my house, we had the TV on. I feel like a lot. And maybe that's just what I remember. And I'm not remembering as much when I'm little. I don't remember what that looked like as much, like on a day-to-day basis. I don't think we watched a ton of TV on the day-to-day basis. I know we watched, like, the news was on.
Like in the morning, like breakfast was, when you guys like came downstairs.
I remember that in high school. Okay. I don't know if that happened when I was little. We'll have to, Mom, when you're, go ahead and let us know in the comments. In the show notes. Let me know if we watched the news in the morning and evening when I was little. I know when I was in high school, the Today Show, my mom and dad have a little TV in their bedroom, and it was always on. We watched the Today Show in the morning because I grew up wanting to be Katie Couric. So that but that was 6th grade and on. I remember that being like a part of our morning. And I remember in junior high and high school coming home, and I would watch Oprah and do my math on the homework, and like I would sit and do my homework on the couch and watch Oprah with my mom. And I would fall asleep on the couch while they're watching ER, and we watched Friday night. What was the Friday? Yes, TGIF. Yes. We watched the TGIF lineup, and
we watched recordings of funniest home videos.
Oh, I was gonna say I know the other show you watch, but we can't say that he's funny anymore either.
Oh yeah. Rip. No. Okay, move along.
So I know we did, and I know my brother watched that show. My brother's 6 years older, so I feel like we have a little bit different, like the shows that we watched. But anyway, TV was very much a part of our. It was just on, and it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like anyone was like always sitting. We were sitting and watching ER, and we were sitting and watching the Friday night TJF programming. But it would just be on while we were cooking dinner or whatever. Like it wasn't a huge deal.
Right. So
background
noise.
It
wasn't that someone was like ignoring the family.
Sure.
It just was a thing that was going on.
It was noise. It was like the radio's on.
Sure.
The TV's on. Yeah.
So you're just used to that.
Yeah.
Which you guys can imagine. Then we get married and like I can't focus in a room with the television on. Which, by the way, I don't know is because I was raised with that one.
It's probably a little of both.
Yeah, because one of our boys was like when we had a TV, acts very much like I did. Like he would walk into a room and like he can't finish walking across the room if a TV is on. Whereas like Hadley she'll walk away from a show. Like she just can see it and be like, and just move along with her little life. So
yeah, who knows?
Some might be personality, but
yeah. So
neither here nor there.
There was conflict when we got married of, actually don't know if we had a lot of conflict about, like, I don't think we left the TV on just in our own little apartment when we first got married, but definitely when we went home to my parents' house, we had to have a couple conversations of like, you can't just have the game on unless we're watching the game. Like, right. And we can't just have the news on and then be sitting down to eat dinner because Nathan can't participate in life.
On the
like,
conversation,
yeah. So we need to, if we can watch whatever you want to watch, that's fine. But that's all we're going to be able to do. And that has to be a separate activity than like we're trying to have a conversation or eat a meal together. The TV cannot be on in the background. And they were great about that. And they, the TV's never on when we go over there anymore.
Which is amazing, right? So then if that's our background for this is where we grew up, this is how it went. Let's kind of tie that in with here's the kind of the statistics of where the nation is today.
Well, first, can we say like, so we don't.
Oh yeah, what we did
even before our situation of reconfiguring our life around TV, we have not had cable for a long time.
Right.
Several years. I don't know the last time we had cable, like turn on the TV and there was something there. Like we've had streaming, Netflix and Amazon Prime, and at different times we pay for Hulu so I can watch March Madness or the Olympics. Like we do something like that, and then we'll plug it in or cast it to the TV so we can watch on the TV. But our TV time in our own home has been very intentional. Like we're going to sit down and watch a show. Like, and it was together. We'd watch something at night.
As grown adults, as a married couple, we never really have gotten like, we'll just turn the TV on.
Right. That just was not, because Nathan doesn't function like that. And then, I think as soon as we had Owen, like I think I did watch the Today Show before we had Owen, we must have still had real regular TV because I would watch the Today Show. But then as soon as he got old enough to like be aware of what was going on, I was like, I don't know that I should have on. It just felt weird to like be watching the news and have a toddler there where it was like, I'm not ready for you to like see this and like see these commercials and have this on. And he also was such a sensory I don't know.
Steven.
Yes. Like, so like for our other kids, it probably wouldn't have been of a big deal, but he cannot handle having a TV on. He's a lot like Nathan in that way.
So in that's when we stepped back and we're like, we're just going to do kind of which also was partly budgetary.
We can't afford cable anymore.
So expensive. And Anna wasn't teaching. And so we had one teacher income and a growing family. And so we ended up stepping away and saying, hey, we're just going to pay for internet. And we're going to
Then one year we didn't even have internet, you guys.
Okay, yeah, this is tangential.
If you'd like to support our nonprofit.
We literally did hotspots just off our phones for our internet for a full year, and I love it. If I wanted to
download a new update, I had to go park in Megan's driveway. Thanks, Megan.
we asked a friend if we could use her Wi-Fi.
I need your Wi-Fi.
Your phone won't update unless it's on a consistent Wi-Fi, which, anyway,
Maybe we'll talk about that next. How to live without internet.
How to live off the grid. It doesn't count if you're stealing other people's internet. Like, that's... another
People
thing.
do it.
They do, which bothers me. Like, we're off the grid. Like, no, you're using coffee shops.
Back to
Moving along.
that's where we were with
That's
TV.
where we were. We'll go national stats, and then we'll go with what we've done. So the national stats is that basically from a Nielsen study done in 2020, that the average American 18 and older is 4+ hours a day on television. So we know that teenagers, so 13 to 19, average 7 hours a day of using their smartphones. But when it comes just to watching television, the average for anyone 18 or older is 4 hours a day. So this conversation is really looking at parents, right? We're talking about parents and grandparents, that we are still engaging television as a primary medium, whether
So
that's
28 hours a week. It's a part-time job.
It's a part-time job.
Watching TV.
It's watching TV. And this isn't, we're listening to podcasts, audiobooks, text messaging, social media. This is just engaging.
But I think there are
shows.
a lot of people who are like my parents where the TV is just on.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Yeah,
know
I
that
think that's what
everyone's sitting on the couch for 4 hours a night.
Right. But
Which in my brain, that's what I hear. And I'm like, you're sitting on your couch for 4 hours watching TV every night. I don't know. I think there are some people who are, that's what they do. But I wonder, I'm curious what the percentage of people is like, oh, it's just on and I'm cooking dinner and we're all, or the game's on or whatever, you know.
yeah. Yeah. So here,
I'm watching this while I fold laundry or whatever.
right. Yeah. It's just something kind of
noise.
going. It's noise. So it's 2018 article out of The Atlantic. I'll just read the first part. It says, over the last 8 years, all the new non-TV things, that's social media, phones, YouTube, Netflix, have only cut about an hour per day from the dizzying amount of TV the average household watches. Americans are still watching more than 7 hours and 50 minutes per household per day. The thing that Americans do most often with their free time is not cooking or exercise or hiking. No, Americans watch TV. That's the default in the current move to even tinier screens. And
You know what I always think of when I hear that? Like,
What?
this is what Americans are doing.
oh, go ahead.
The end of Wall-E when they're on the ship.
Yeah,
So
I think there's a reason Wall-E was created.
I know, but it's alarming.
Yeah, I think
That's a lot of
anyone
time.
who's watched The Social Dilemma also has.
I'm
that
saying
image.
that as somebody who enjoys watching TV. Like, it's my own. I'm not trying to shame anybody of like, your TV time is too much. Like, my TV time could be.
Wall-E was creepy. Like it's eerie on so many levels.
Yeah, very accurate.
So then with our family, I guess I'll kind of set the stage for this. So we have this is kind of the context. We read the book, Andy Crouch's The Tech-Wise Family. And it started this conversation of why do we have a TV? Like Anna had already mentioned, we'd kind of stepped back in a lot of our viewing. We don't have cable just because it's
We even in the pandemic, you guys made a schedule for when we could watch TV. And that was a huge fight too, because we were watching. Oh, it really was a bad fight. Do you remember this?
It was multiple.
But I think it was like the pandemic had happened. There's just a lot happening.
Yeah, this is like a counseling session, by the way,
It
everyone.
was
Thanks for joining us.
legitimately, I really went to counseling because I was like, I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
I think we had gotten into the habit, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, of like, what's happening? I wanted to just laugh and relax at the end of the day. And Jimmy Fallon at the beginning of the pandemic was doing like his funny, like at home videos, and they were really cute. Or we'd watch, I think we talked about it on here, like on John Krasinski's little program was really cute. And that for me is such an easy, like, I'm going to decompress at the end of the day. And then one day I was like, do you want to watch Fallon? And Nathan said no and looked at me like I was just, and I felt like you had such derision in your face of like, I can't believe you'd ask me if I wanted to watch Fallon tonight. And I was just like, I don't even feel like I know you. Like, we're just married to a stranger. So that was like the first, like, that was probably a year ago.
It was probably a year ago. So
Then we made a screen time schedule and we're like, we're not going to watch TV every night, which in my head, I totally agree with because I would like to read more and I would like to not just go to bed earlier, really. Like I could go to bed earlier. I could work on a project that needed to get done. I could be more attentive to some other person in our home that might need attention.
Sure. And I do want to caution this because there's always something like this is where the argument goes, right? Like, well, you shouldn't be doing that thing because you could be doing something more productive, right? Like that's the argument you're going to hear with a lot of things. And it can be used for reading fiction. It can be used for
I'm
listening
not
to
always
music.
reading something that's like self-help or I'm not always opening the Bible and reading. But I do have a whole list of fiction I want to get through that I enjoy reading. I don't need to watch The Office for the 15th time through. Like,
Right. And I think that's so the Andy Crouch challenge is really talking about like, why are you watching television? Does it help you? Does it ask anything of you? Like, are you required to work and to try and to like get better? Right. Does it risk failure for you? Or is it just that easy valve where you can hit and like, I know I'm going to feel better after this, but really all you're doing is slapping a Band-Aid on the anxiety and the fear and the stress that you're feeling.
And sometimes you are.
Sometimes you are.
Yeah.
And for me, I was getting more stressed out because we'd finish watching these shows. It'd be late at night now, and I'd have these other things like I want to write this thing or I want to go research this thing.
And TV doesn't relax you.
Does not relax me.
I am falling asleep. Like if we watch more than one episode, I'm asleep by the second one, and like carry me to bed, I'm done. But Nathan's you're amped up.
I'm amped up. So this is kind of what you guys are hearing was going on. And so we had these conversations. They were not pretty. Like, please do not hear that this is just like Nathan suggested it and then it was beautiful.
And I just said, that's such a great idea.
You're so smart and pretty, Nathan.
I will submit to you as the leader of our home.
Yeah, right. This is not a salvation issue. This is not a submission thing. This is saying like, hey, I personally, as just Nathan the human, don't love television. And this was part of the hard conversation is I don't like TV. I
felt like you were saying you don't like me.
Yeah. Like, so if you guys are like, if you're thinking about having this conversation with your family, like, oh, this would go over like a lead balloon. Please know it did.
It did go over like a lead balloon.
Multiple times. Like Anna literally felt personally attacked. I didn't feel heard. We had lots of fights. Anna went to counseling for this.
I don't know. Well,
in the stage.
Sure.
It's time. You did go to a counselor. I have scheduled mine. It hasn't happened yet, but it'll happen.
We all need to be in counseling.
More updates pending. But the conversation basically led to us going, hey, what is the point of the TV? So my main sticking point was a television. This might reopen the whole thing.
I'm already just annoyed having to hear it again.
But the idea is, why do we have TVs like at the center of the main room of our house? In our case, or we don't have a room to have be an entertainment room.
Right. Our only spot where we had a TV was in our like off the kitchen in the family room. That's where we had our TV. And we don't have a bonus room. We don't have a playroom.
Right.
We have a little loft.
That is on the backside of the wall of our boys' shared bedroom.
That you could hear. It's not a closed door.
Like we would hang it on their closet wall.
Right. It's not an ideal situation for anybody. I mean, they could watch a show up there, but that's not really what we were going for, is for a spot for them to watch TV. No. Anyway, so it was just in our main room of our home.
Right. And so we ended up making a deal where we were going to give this a trial run. And it started with, all right, well, we're going to shift some savings around that we have, and we are going to finish this couch.
Yes, because I said, fine, you can sell the TV and get rid of the TV if I get it. We've had the same couch in our home. That was a hand-me-down couch from Nathan's parents.
That we purchased when I was in high school and broke it with 6 giant football friends.
It's probably 30 years old.
Yeah, it was.
And it was great. I didn't care at all if
Thanks,
the kids jumped on it. It was very durable. It just was not something that I would have picked. Yeah. And we had saved for a while anyway for a couch. And then when Ethan's like, we're going to get rid of the TV. That's how it went, you guys. He just said, we're getting rid of the TV. I said, fine, I'm going to redo this room because now we're just going to have a gaping hole where the TV was. I need to be able to rearrange the room. And we had been saving anyway for a new couch. Yeah. And
keep in mind, a frame TV was thrown out in that deal. That's
still on my list.
Yeah.
One day there's just going to be one when
That's
you come home.
There's just going to be a frame TV. So that was, but we basically, it was 10 p.m. We posted the couch. 10 a.m. the next day it was gone.
And the TV. You posted them both.
They were gone in 24 hours, and we literally then went and tried to find this couch that we'd been thinking of, and it was 8 weeks out.
And we sat on the floor for 8 weeks.
So we sat on the floor for 2 months, and now what we have is we have a sitting room that connects to our kitchen that is actually great. And we don't have a TV in our house. We still watch shows. We watch them through a laptop. Even if we watch it as a family, we watch Friday night movie nights off a laptop that we use the Wi-Fi for.
Yeah, and it's fine. I feel like I still am wondering. I did feel like you would love this.
What's that?
Our Greta Eskridge of Ma and Pa Modern,
Yes.
just did a little
Love her.
post about how they don't have TV. She was raised. You guys are kindred spirits.
Yes. Great person.
She was also raised without TV, and they do the same thing. Because I feel like one of my big pushbacks on just watching the laptop was, well, it's okay for right now. It's actually not perfect for right now because Hadley doesn't know to not touch a computer, so it's a little bit
Yeah, it has a touch screen.
annoying. But the boys probably watch 2 shows a week, and then we watch a movie together on Friday night. So it's not like it's all the time, but if she's awake when they're watching a show, it can be a little bit annoying.
And the kids, by the way, are 7, 5, and 2
Yeah.
for
Yep.
age range there.
So one of my things I was like, well, I feel like it's fine for us all to be like snuggling on the couch because they're 7 and 5. I don't know how this is going to work when everybody's huge.
Sure.
So, but Greta's family is teenagers and bigger kids, and they still all watch on the laptop and cozy around, and apparently you can make it work.
Which we're gonna deal with that as we get closer.
I
But
know.
for the point of today's conversation, everyone, the idea is, why do we have it? Like, TV was not adding to our quality of life. It was not something, even when we wanted to watch it, it wasn't something that was benefiting us towards the goals we have of, man, I want to like hear more from the Lord, and I want to be growing in this area that we've committed to this nonprofit work. Like, I want our kids to be able to be entertaining themselves. Like, it didn't benefit us in any of those ways. There was certainly convenience to it.
Yeah, and I think that is where the rub comes of like, well, we're going to say like, yes, of course, like Deuteronomy 6 and Proverbs 4, like those are verses that we want to guide our life by, but then that isn't lining up with where our minutes are going in the day. Like when we just are, the easiest option is always to turn on the TV or to put a show on, and is that lining up? I think that's where your questions are coming from of like, we're saying this is who we want to be, and yet this is how we're spending our time, and they're not lining up with each other.
Right. And for us, that was a huge deal. And then to give something that I'm like, well, this thing doesn't line up with who we are, and now I'm giving it like all our furniture points at this thing, right? Like,
What is our furniture going to point at?
what is our furniture going to point out without a TV? So I love this from Neil Postman. So when we just talk about like kind of where are some other ideas, we mentioned Andy Crouch. Neil Postman wrote a book in 1985 called Amusing Ourselves to Death. Do you want this? Actually, Anna grabbed this quote. So do you want to read his stuff?
Oh, sure. If you haven't read this one, it's a real good one.
Please, just don't read it before you go to sleep.
Sure.
It keeps me awake when I read it at night.
Okay.
It keeps me alone.
He says, there's no more disturbing consequence of the electronic and graphic revolution than this, that the world as given to us through television seems natural, not bizarre. He's talking about how we don't even question it anymore. So this is in 1985.
Yeah, 35 years ago.
35 years ago.
36.
Yep. And then when was the TV? In the 50s?
Oh man, the first TV
When did people have TVs in their home? In the 50s?
would have been the 50s. So they started.
Okay. So like 30 years of having the TV. It's just totally natural. And then the other big thing, and this is one of his main arguments in his book, is that television has made entertainment itself the natural format for the representation of all experience. Our television set keeps us in constant communion with the world, but it does so with a face whose smiling countenance is unalterable. The problem is not that television presents us with the entertaining subject matter, but that all subject matter is presented as entertaining.
Boom. Oh my goodness.
We could go, especially in our current political climate, we could talk for a long time about why
let's hit on it real quick. Like, what does that mean? Like,
he goes hard after this, and this in like 1985, but just to talk about like in this, I think this is the chapter where he talks about like when JFK was first running for president and they put presidential candidates on TV, and that was a big reason Kennedy won, was because the debates were televised and Kennedy knew how to perform and how to appear on television, and Nixon did not. And
I am not a crook.
yeah, that was a big, so Postman's big argument in this is not that entertainment for entertainment's sake is wrong. Like if we're watching TV just for the sake of being entertained, great. Like he's all for that. It's when everything else, like when we have taken a different format, like we're watching the news, for example, and now the news has become entertainment. Like he goes after like, we'll see you tomorrow. Like, well, what? Like, why do I need to see you tomorrow? Like, this is like, we're friends and we're checking in, and like everything that you're presenting to me is done in a way that's supposed to hold my attention
Right.
It's not just to get the information of the day across.
Yeah. This is huge when we talk about like why that news is a business, that they are having to sell you information that basically either will be making you happy or making you fearful.
Can we talk about one other thing that just got so extra entertained?
Sure.
Did you hear about this?
I don't know.
The NFL broadcast on Nickelodeon.
No.
Oh my gosh, I was listening to it. I was
Wait,
like,
an NFL broadcast?
on Nickelodeon.
Okay.
And they want to make the football game entertaining because they're losing
Viewerships
with kids, and they're losing kids playing football. Which when I was listening to this, I was thinking kids aren't playing football because parents are more aware of traumatic brain injuries. Like not because kids aren't interested in football, but we know now what happens when youth play head sports.
Yeah, with Anna played a lot of football growing up, everyone, so go ahead and forgive her for
sports?
that. You know those sports with all, the head. It's an important part of it.
Okay, so anyway, they televised the game on Nickelodeon, and then they had like, I don't know any characters from Nickelodeon, but they had those
like young kids or like cartoons?
No. Well, they did have like SpongeBob was in the goalpost, like they're kicking, and then SpongeBob would show up between the goalposts, and the kicker's trying to get it in between SpongeBob's mouth, and then the people commentating are characters from the Nickelodeon
like a weird
show.
60s acid dream.
Yes, and then every time there was a touchdown, it was like they got slimed in the end zone, so it was like so fun for kids, and yeah, it is so fun for kids, but also like so overstimulating for kids. And like, why are we having to make something that already is on TV? And generally, like, it's exciting to watch people throw a ball and score a touchdown. Like,
sure,
we're excited about
it's
that.
A sport. That's no longer
it's
a sport
entertainment.
Now.
Like, we're already watching something entertaining just by watching people play football for a living.
Crazy.
And now we've just added like, I just thought of like the repercussions of like what this has on our educational system and everything we watch on TV. Like this generation of kids is growing up so believing I have to be entertained all the time.
Yeah, let's take a quick tangent on this because this doesn't have to do with the television in the house, but I think this is worth talking about families. When we talk about our Drool Tech, one of the main reasons I stepped out of the classroom as a middle school teacher and that Anna supported this as we prayed through what does this look like to help kids reach their full potential, we really felt like, man, teachers are powerful and being in the classroom is amazing. And yet there's these topics that aren't getting addressed. What you're hearing now is one of them. This concept of the cultural norm for, well, it's just television or it's just technology.
This is how kids learn now.
This is how kids learn now is one of the things we were told as teachers. Like this is just.
And this isn't everywhere. This
might just be our area, but there's national groups pushing for this. Like,
yeah, and there's big money.
Screen time is just time.
In educational
is one of the arguments. And that's a little disingenuous. What we're finding is and I don't even like the term. So the term gamification has now come to mean behavioral psychology tied into some kind of digital feedback so that it has rewards and leaderboards and points, and you are getting basically guided through a series. So you have this basically operant conditioning chamber. B.F. Skinner is the one who trained a pigeon how to play ping pong and then a rat to press a lever on command. And that is being used on kids. And the idea is, if you want to do this math problem, then when you finish it, we'll give you points, we'll give you rewards, we'll give you a level, we'll give you a ranking. And this is going to kind of mimic competition, but really what we're doing is we're driving you towards this end goal. And yeah, you might learn some math in the process, but you're also learning that rewards are what motivate you, right? Like this outside stimulus. And
instead of just being able to do a math problem because it's satisfying to solve a problem.
Right. And what you're doing is you're hijacking the dopamine system and hoping that, well, at least they're going to learn good things in the process. And I think what you're hearing with the football, like sports are no longer exciting enough because
it's not good enough for me to see a 300-pound man tackle at full speed a quarterback. I now need him to get slimed.
And so what we have is we have technology that is basically driving us forward in what we consider normal. And we are very uncomfortable with silence, with quiet, with slow. We want to constantly be on. And actually, you might find out that when you're not always on, you're falling asleep. And that's because you're overstimulated. And that's because, we've built this habit that's unhealthy. And really, at the end of the day, the only reason we even care about any of that is that it makes it impossible to hear from God. When we are so stressed out, and we are so reward driven, and we are so getting yanked around to the next urgent thing rather than thinking about what's important. We don't have space for quiet time. We don't have space for praying continually. We don't have space to even acknowledge where we are dry spiritually and we are broken and need God's Holy Spirit to come and minister to us, because we're used to just kind of tapping that next app or scrolling that next feed and getting that feel good to get to the next thing. And I think for many of us, quarantine has stripped a lot of that away. We're finding that it doesn't fill enough of the voids, and maybe we're pointing fingers at other people. But our argument today, my argument specifically, is maybe the TV is a spot we can start, where we are seeing that it's something we're just filling in the gaps of our life. And it is instead misrepresenting what we actually stand for and what we actually believe in.
Okay, so let's bring it back to
all the way back around.
We got a little passionate.
Sorry.
I think that was great.
Good.
I started it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring it back to, we kind of started with Andy Crouch's book, The Tech Wise Family, and how that was kind of a big jumping off point just for the seed to even be planted of maybe eliminating our TV in our living space. And he is a big advocate for that. Of just, the quote we have from him is saying, "We want to create more than we consume, so we fill the center of our home with things that reward skill and active engagement." And the idea is this: to push technology and cheap thrills to the edges. So it's not even that you don't have a TV in your house, but I think it's making it more difficult to access, and it's creating instead, like, and looking at your home and saying, where is everybody hanging out, and how can we encourage creative community time in those places instead of time where we're just going to disengage and we're going to be on separate devices, or we're going to watch TV because that's just what we've always done here. If we remove the TV from this common area, and maybe we do put it in a different, you have a playroom or you have a bonus room, or you do
a projector.
Okay, you do a projector. Something where it's like, okay, we're going to bring the TV out now to watch an intentional movie. What could that look like for your family? And then instead, like, okay, we're going to make the games really accessible. And if you have little kids or
board games, she's referencing.
Yes, we're going to make board games accessible. We're going to have them out. We're going to have books out. We're going to have all our coloring stuff that it's really easy to grab. We're going to have music stuff accessible. So that we reach for that instead of reaching for the TV.
Yeah, I think just removing that super easy default and being really intentional with our families of going, man, what are our kids passionate about, and how can we support that? I just want to make sure we've said it out here in the clear and in the open that this is going to be harder than just watching TV, right? Like, whatever you choose to do, if you're choosing to put the TV in another room, like, there's always going to be this pain point where you recognize, like, man, TV's easy. It's comforting. It's such a simple default, and pushing back against that requires intentionality and requires really a family framework so you guys can know why you're doing this. Because without a why, you're just going to be like, well, whatever, it's not that bad. Other people are doing worse, right? And that's not the standard we're using. Like, we're saying, what does God want for us? And is this supporting that? Is this directly helping us? Mm-hmm. Or is it a distraction? So it will be hard. Please don't think that you can just like walk into your house, throw the TV out, and everyone will just like high five and love it. Like, it takes some training to get used to doing things at the pace of real life and doing them for yourself, and not just vegging watching Forged in Fire. Or
yeah, and really, our kids have an easier time with this than we do. Like, they'll ask about Friday night movie night, and they ask about Dude Perfect. They know Dude Perfect videos come out on Mondays, and that's kind of all. I feel like they're pretty used to being on that schedule for their screen time. It's harder for us, like, to not just turn on a show every night.
Yeah, it's 8 p.m.
But then we also have a kid in our house who pecks us to death about, how come no one's reading the paper? You guys got the paper. Did you read the paper last night, Mom? Did you read the paper? What are you going to do with the old paper? Okay, I'm going to read the paper just so this kid stops
talking. Guys, Friday night, I got 2 sticky notes on the counter where Anna leaves me sticky notes of like the honeydew list. 2 sticky notes written in beautiful 7-year-old handwriting. And one said, read newspaper. And the other one said, clean Gilbert's bowl. Gilbert is our fish. But like, that's also what we're dealing with. So we can loan out our oldest if you need
some accountability in your life. He'll come keep you accountable. The kid's relentless.
Yeah. So, But
all that to say,
that's where we are.
It's not always, we're not saying this from a place of like, look at us, we got rid of our TV and it's so easy and I never miss it. No, I still
Let's
enjoy.
talk about that real quick.
No,
Like,
we need to land this plane and wrap it up.
But okay, so we have done this. Like, how many months has it been now?
We
Was it
got our couch
Yeah.
at the end of October, right after Owen's
So
birthday.
2 months before that.
So it must have been the beginning of September that we sold the couch.
All right. So it's been
And
since
TV.
September.
We did it all in the same weekend.
So we're talking 4 months,
Yep.
give or take. So we are a bit into this, and yes, it's not perfect, people. But what
Aesthetically, I do appreciate not staring at the TV
design-wise,
as a design principle. I do enjoy that.
as someone who is super against, like, vividly mad about this, how has it been for you 4 months in?
It's been fine. It's been better than I thought it would be, especially now that we're not sitting on the floor.
Yeah,
And we
having
have
the
a
couch
comfortable
helps.
couch to sit on. That is helping. It really is fine. Getting the laptop out is just a little bit inconvenient, but it's not terrible. I think we already talked about that. It's really just if Hadley is awake and she pushes all the
she touches
buttons and the
things.
boys get mad at her. But
Okay.
for the most part, it's fine.
Cool. Yeah. So I think our takeaways from this, as we land this plane, is that when we talk about televisions in our home, we have to be thinking about the gospel. We want to think about, is this helping us show our kids Jesus, right? Like, that is our goal as parents, is not just to tell them a bunch of things or get them to follow rules, because that's not righteousness. Righteousness is having peace with God and doing what he says to do. And we get imputed righteousness from Jesus. So we need changed hearts. 2 Corinthians 5:17. When we trust in Jesus, we repent of our sins, and we trust in Jesus, we get new hearts and we are new creations. So out of that, we want to teach our kids about Jesus. And we go, is our screen helping us do that? Or is it teaching them fear, or teaching them distraction, or teaching them just poor habits? Coping mechanisms, right? Like, what are we modeling for them? What are our priorities as a family? And does our house actually represent that? Or our apartment where we're living, does where we put our tech represent that? We've said not in the bedroom, which we didn't say in this podcast, but it's worth repeating. There should be no tech in the bedroom, including televisions. No phones in the bedroom, which will be a conversation for another day, I think. But we do want to look at where is our tech in the house. And then the last thing is just, how can we have this challenge as a family where we find a room in our house and we eliminate the things that ask little or nothing of us and develop little or nothing in us. So that's the Andy Crouch challenge for this week. So with your spouse, with a community member, in your church community, maybe with your kiddos, have that conversation this week. Take 5 minutes and just say, hey, like,
sell your TV. And then
hey, sell your TV and life will be perfect.
No, but I think you can pitch it to kids or a spouse who's maybe reluctant. Like, we can sell the TV, and then what could maybe we can do something fun, or like invest in the family. Like, we could buy something for the family, or we could do a little, can't go anywhere still, but
you can't travel. Well, that's not true. Some people can.
Maybe you could go somewhere local. That's fun if things are open for you.
Depending on what part of the world you're in.
We could drive through Chick-fil-A.
Woo, Chick-fil-A.
For an hour because the line's long.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, that's all.
All right, cool. Thank you, everybody. I hope this was encouraging. If you have any questions, you can reach out, nathan@gospeltech.net. We are very excited. In the next little bit, we'll be bringing up more about the new website that's coming out and some of the resources that'll be available. But we are so thankful for you listening today. We hope this was encouraging. And, you can find us at Love God Use Tech on Instagram and Facebook. All right. Thank you all for being here and for working together as we all strive to love God and use tech.